Hey there, this is Dave Gleason. I'm head coach here at Athletic Revolution in Pembroke, Massachusetts. And today I want to speak to you briefly about strength training for 6 to 9-year-old young athletes. Yes, that's right, strength training. Resistance training, some people call it, but we're going to stick to the word strength training for a specific reason. You see, what I want to do is change the paradigm, if you will, that is still out there in some cases, that these kids need to be on little person or smaller adult selectorized equipment like Nautilus equipment. That's probably the worst thing that they could use at their age. I want to display the notion that it should be bicep curls and bench presses of some sort. Although these activities are done here not in the traditional manner that you may think of. If I have a young child bend down and pick up a 4-pound medicine ball and pick it up over their head, a 6-year-old may in fact squat down perfectly to pick up that medicine ball, stand up, curl it perfectly, bicep curl, and press it over their head perfectly, okay, because they've been uncoached in it and because they've explored it, discovered it on their own. Now, without getting too far ahead of myself, that was a segue, if you will, for me to talk to you a bit about what strength training should look like for a young child. For one thing, it should be the part or an integral part of an overall multi-dimensional look at activity for them. In other words, it should be rooted in coordination training, so they're working on spatial awareness, balance, reactivity, rhythm, the list goes on and on there. Cooperation, fun, games, activities. Strength training is a part of that equation. It is not exclusive to itself. So with that said, what should it look like for a young child? How do you get a young child to squat or to lift their own body weight in a way where it's not a number of repetitions for a certain number of sets, which quite honestly, for a 6-year-old, even for myself these days, is quite boring, and I don't think it sets them up for success long term in terms of their overall psychological outlook on activity. So we give funny names to the activities that we give our 6 to 9-year-olds here, like monster walks. A monster walk is a lunge walk. Big steps forward where the kids are trying to drop that back knee to the floor, just like we as adults do lunges, with very little cueing. We have to remember at this age, they're still learning how to move. We call our classes here discovery classes for this age group for that reason. They're still discovering the right way to move, and their brains and central nervous systems are doing that on their own. So if I ask the kids to lunge walk across the length of the turf in terms of a monster walk, that is what we call triple extension of the knee, the hip, and certainly the ankle. It's extending when they stand up. The same thing happens with a squatting movement. So it's a way for them to practice, if you will, to be exposed to a triple extension movement, type of a movement, which will set them up for success when they start squatting in the future. We also want to keep in mind that at this age, what you're looking to do is strengthen them systemically. Think of movements, not muscles. So we don't look to strengthen the biceps or strengthen the quads or the chest. Think of it as areas of the body in movements. So for instance, again, the lunge walk, that movement right there, the monster walks, is that triple extension works their lower extremity as a whole. Hamstrings, glutes, quadriceps, calves, adductors, their inner thigh, their hips, everything. It hits everything. To set them up for success for their upper body, another systemic activity we'll do is what's called a bear crawl. That's where they have to crawl across the turf in varying patterns sometimes on their hands and their toes, no knees, so it's not like a baby crawl. I might add that this is a terrific core strength building activity as well. Without strength from their bottom rib to their mid-thigh, crawling across the floor with without their knees touching is very, very difficult. So just with two quick examples there, I showed you how to strengthen using strength training activities, their lower body, their lower extremities, and their upper body, okay, with just two things. Now if we make that fun, for instance, what if with either one of those activities, we played red light, green light, or a stop-go game, whatever you want to call it, where as they're crawling across the floor, for instance, you say stop, they have to stop. You say go, they have to go. Terrific way to infuse fun into a situation where you're trying to elicit strength or the ability for them to increase their strength as they get older. All right, so hopefully this helps you out in terms of what you're thinking about in terms of what strength training is for your young athlete or the young athletes that you coach. We really need to think about what we're doing for our young kids, and are we really setting them up for success, or are we handing them a deck of cards that's kind of stacked against them? We really want to think about that big time. I'm going to let you go for today. This is strength training for 6 to 9-year-old kids. Just a brief overview on how we want to look at it. My next video will be along the same lines, but for 10 to 13-year-old young athletes. Thanks so much for your time. This is Dave Gleason.